Welcome to the 12th episode of the Perfectly Imperfect Spiritual Podcast. I met my today's guest in Abiola Abrams Spiritpreneur course. Jovhannah Tisdale is a multi-passionate, multi-dimensional woman. It will be very difficult to introduce her well, but she is the spiritual love healer, spiritual coach, and she has an amazing podcast called The Abundantly Ever After Show. So stay tuned until the end of the podcast, as Jovhannah is going to share with you her offerings, and she's going to let you know where you can find her. Welcome, Jovhannah, to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
I'm very happy to have you, and I'd like to share with all of the viewers and listeners, we exchanged a couple of messages as well on Instagram, and it was beautiful that we both agreed that we just want to go with the flow. This is a completely not scripted podcast, so we are just going to see where the conversation takes us. I did pull some cards for us, and I shared them with you before this recording. So I'm going to present them to the viewers, and I'm going to describe them to the listeners as well. And I'm sure you've got your own cards as well, but I feel it will be the right thing to do. And I couldn't have chosen a different deck, so I pulled cards from Abiola Abrams African Goddess Rising. And
Yes.
those are the goddesses that are part of today's conversations. Their energy is very much present. We have Goddess Mojaji and its manifestation card. We have Goddess Oshun, Fearless Love. And we have Goddess Inkosazana, Celestial Alignment. So I think it's so beautiful because it's so much, well, I can't say that summarizes, but it tells me a lot about the work that you do.
It does. I saw, like, when you shared the cards with me, I was like, oh my gosh, that is so perfect, because those are the little bits of my wheelhouse that I kind of blend together in the work that I do. So I'm excited about the conversation.
Yes. So could you tell the listeners and the viewers what exactly do you do? Well, I've mentioned that you're the spiritual love healer. What does the spiritual love healer do?
That is a really great question. I do a variety of things, but all of my work is rooted in love. And I like to think of spiritual love as the purest, most divine frequency of love that recognizes the divine in each of us. And I kind of coined that term because when we think about love, oftentimes we think about heartache and betrayal and hurt. And it's almost like love has become weaponized. So I was like, I want something that is more pure and that really represents what love truly is supposed to be. So in my work as a spiritual love healer, I kind of help people when it comes with love, relationships, matters of the heart, whether it's connecting with their self, whether it's connecting with a partner, family, friend, just really fostering healthier connections. And of course, with the world around us, which is kind of where manifesting comes in at, because we also have relationships with money, with different things that we interact with in our lives as well. So just helping people live abundantly ever after pain, trauma, and heartache, so that you can continue to foster those healthy connections and manifest the life that you truly want to live.
Beautiful. And I listened to some of your episodes of your podcast, and then I've seen some of your posts, and I know you also hold space for women's darkness. I've seen it. So you really help women to shine light. I'm quoting you, into the darkest part. But yeah, I feel like into the darkest part of their souls, darkest parts of their hearts, and you really help them to tap into and discover their potential. So would you be able to tell a little bit about that part of your work and
Yeah,
service?
sure, I'd be happy to. So when I think about self love, at its core, I see it as shadow work. It is going into those dark places, the things that we don't like about ourselves, the pain and the wounds, even some of the traumas that we have experienced. And instead of looking at it as this thing happened to me, this is how I am going to choose to identify myself. Like, and this, I guess, has come out of my own experiences with trauma. I've been in abusive relationships. I've dealt with a number of different forms of trauma. So instead of looking at the mess that life handed me and saying, well, this is it, this is all that I can be, I chose to use those things as stepping stones and see how can I become stronger. You know, what can I learn from this? How can I use this to grow and evolve beyond my circumstances? And I know that not everyone has that same mindset. So I'm very careful with how I kind of talk about that, because sometimes it can trigger people if they're not ready to hear that. But for a long time, I was in a victim mentality, especially after being in an abusive relationship, because it was, I mean, it was a horrific experience. And I would just remember like continuing to identify with that. Well, I was abused, so this is why I'm sad, or this is why I'm afraid, or this is why. And if one day I just had the realization, like, no, like that's not, I don't want to live my life like that. I was continuing to hold on to the energy of that situation, and therefore almost allowing myself to experience it until I said, no, I don't want to be a victim. I don't want this horrible experience to have control of me or the outcome of my life anymore. And that's when I was able to start to change. So I help women who are ready to like look at the cards, so to speak, that life has handed them and decide who they want to become in spite of the heartache and the pain and the trauma.
Beautiful. And I found so many similar life experiences that while listening to your podcast, I spent over 11 years with a narcissist. I was in a very abusive relationship. I left in 2018. Uh, you can only imagine, and not only imagine, I know you know it, how confusing your reality becomes when you are in a relationship with a narcissist. But I was also continuously raped, sexually abused. So I had to go myself through lots of trauma work. What I would say
Yeah.
to women as well who are at the beginning of their healing journey, that it is okay for a little bit to feel like victims, because I remember when I first left and I was so frustrated with myself when watching all the TED Talks and seeing and hearing women telling their stories and mentioning about them being thrivers, about being survivors, and about those experiences not defining them. And now I've reached, after the years, the same conclusion. And I really can, I'm so proud of myself because I am a thriver. But at that moment, when I first started, I needed to tap into that hurt. I needed to tap into that
Mm-hmm.
sadness. And so I would tell everyone to allow yourself to actually feel that way and don't feel that it's something wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah, like wherever we are on our journey is where we are, and it's okay. Like we can hold space for both and. It's I remember I posted something about, victim mentality, and that triggered someone who wanted to be in that mentality. And I'm like, that's okay. Like you can have that. Like we can have both of those energies and mentalities. Neither is right or wrong. It's just what you're choosing, and that's okay. Like we don't have to put one against the other. Like our healing journeys are all unique, and wherever you are, like you just have to honor that, allow yourself to feel what you feel so that you can actually process it. And that is how you get started and you continue to grow. So where you are today may not be where you are in 3 months, 6 months, and years. It takes time. So yeah.
Definitely. And then when we decide that we want to heal, because healing is a choice, then we can get empowered as well. I feel it's so important maybe for us to talk a little bit, because I've also listened to that episode where you so beautifully talked about choosing better. I feel like it would help so many women, because I remember how traumatic and how confusing my whole experience was, especially after I decided to leave an abusive relationship. Well, my ex-partner was arrested, but then he's never been prosecuted for what he did, because there's never been enough of evidence. So what the justice system, at least here in the UK, taught me, and what the experience of all the family members and friends who actually were not there for me taught me, that I had to build up inside of me my own agency in terms of being able to get out of it. But I also had to trust myself that my reality and my truth is valid, no matter whether anyone else is going to believe me or not. Because for a very long time, I thought, okay, he's never gone to jail for what he's done. Therefore, probably my experience has not been that bad. And then I remember you sharing in your podcast as well that especially even some people, whether they consciously or not, they contribute to us women not feeling validated. Because I remember so many people telling me, didn't you know before getting married, or even trying to blame us, like there must have been something wrong with you, you must have done something that made you, that led to the abuse. So I feel like it's
Right.
so important if you can talk a little bit about that, so we can give hope and we can make other women believe that it's never their fault. It's never your fault when you're abused, and it's not a choice.
Yeah, I just got chills like as you were talking about that because you know it's so loaded. People who are abusive and manipulative, narcissists, they're not going to come out right and say, "Hey, guess what? I'm a piece of crap, and I'm going to use you. I'm going to abuse you. I'm going to, try to break your spirit and damage you emotionally." Because of course we'd be like, "No thanks. Like I'm good." But these people, they come across as charismatic, as charming, as loving, and that is part of the manipulation and the abuse. So once abuse starts emotionally and psychologically before it ever becomes physical, by the time it becomes physical, you are already so enmeshed in it that you don't realize it's happening. And your spirit and your self-esteem have been broken down to the point where you think it is something that you did to have caused this person to have changed. And so it's just a horrific situation. So for those people who are telling women to choose better, that's just not simply possible because we don't ever know the true nature or character of a person. No matter how intuitive you are,
Mhm.
people can still hide their energy and their true nature. And so I just really hate that that is what it's come to. And I think instead of women being told to choose better, men need to be told and taught how to do better, how to handle their own trauma, how to manage their emotions, how to communicate so that they can better deal with whatever it is they have going on internally and show up fully to a relationship, or at least be honest in going into a relationship about who they are and what their intentions are. And again, if don't know what you're choosing, you can't choose better.
Mhm.
So that always, again, and I think the way society is, it just puts blame on women, and there's never really enough accountability on men for their actions. Just like you said, your abuser was never prosecuted. Mine wasn't either. And even though, we went through the court system regarding custody, and I was painted out to be a emotional wreck because of the abuse, of course. And you would think that, and one of the things I think that was the most jarring to my system is that when I left the relationship, things got way worse. So because they've lost that control, so now they're gripping at straws, and it just seemed like everything was crashing down around me. But he was actually granted primary custody of our daughter, and so in the middle of navigating, it just shocked me to my core that this could happen. And so the abuse continued on through manipulation around, parenting and birthdays, and it was just a nightmare altogether. So we cannot choose better unless people are presenting themselves openly and honestly towards us. And I don't want women to ever think that it is your fault that someone is a bad person. And one of the things that I tell women who are like, I'm always, attracting bad people, what's wrong with me? Because that's what society tells us. Well, you attracted this person, so there must be something about you. And no, there are just bad people that exist in the world. No matter how good we are, how smart, how intuitive, there are just not good human beings that exist. And so we do have to be more mindful. And that's what a lot of women are doing now, where they're choosing not to date. They're choosing to focus on themselves, their careers, their families, and just not dating because we were told to choose better. And so now we're choosing ourselves.
Yes. And I remember, well, something that popped into my head as you were telling your story is that one of my blind spots when being in that abusive relationship, or when entering that relationship that I didn't know was abusive, was that I assumed that everyone had the same values, that everyone had the same morals. So I would have never thought, and it was after 10 years of us being together when I actually, well, it was the most upsetting, heartbreaking realization when I realized we entered the marriage for various reasons. And actually, I was with that man, but actually I've never known him. And I had to learn right now that we're all different. So miscommunication also happens because we would be articulating various things, or I would be articulating, but then he understood those things differently. So yeah, that's also an important part of my experience that I wanted to share.
Yeah, I was the same. I wouldn't think, I'm not the type of person that would just come into someone's life to use or manipulate them. So my mind wouldn't operate in that way. And I had to learn, to be a little less naive and a little less trusting, which is sad because that's my default, but we just cannot operate that way with everyone. And so, what's that? There's a quote, trust isn't given, it's earned. So really creating space for people who want to connect with you, whether it's a romantic partner or a friendship, to not just grant them full access to your world, and little by little, see, are they worthy of being in my world? Do we share the same values, like you said? Is this an aligned connection for me? How is it going to benefit my life? When I need someone to talk to, will they be there? Or am I just their dumping station when they need someone to talk to? So just being mindful of the dynamics of our connections and who is getting access to us and things like that.
Definitely. And I remember as well what really frustrated my ex-partner towards the end of our relationship, when he was so abusive and tried to use everything to really crush, damage me at all possible levels. And I remember at that moment, I've managed to find that strength, the internal strength. And what he hated was that he could see me being happy. And he would be telling me, like, how can you be happy? And I'm like, I'm happy because my happiness that does not depend on what you're doing. You can do whatever you want, but I choose to be happy. And he hated it. And this is what I've taken as well from that relationship, that happiness doesn't depend on other people's validations, on other people's behavior.
Yeah, that's so important. And I would say definitely the first abusive relationship that was physically abusive was in my 20s. And then I found myself in a narcissistic partnership in my 30s. And even going into that, like, again, it was a shock to me because I'm like, how is this person so harmful? Like, they never put their hands on me, but the things that they did were just as damaging and painful. But once I, like you said, just kind of started building back up my confidence and recognizing when they were gaslighting me and not owning that and holding up my boundaries, once they started realizing they were losing control, like, I could see more rage and anger coming out of them. And I'm just thankful that I was able to, in that situation, and move on. And I learned a lot from both of those relationships for sure.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned something that reminded me. Well, I remember when I was questioned by detectives, constables, whether, well, they were gathering pieces of evidence and they wanted to know whether that case would be presented and whether it will be a criminal case. And then they told me, your ex-partner should be in a book as a case study because he has done everything to you that could have been done, but he's been operating within the tones of gray. So nothing has ever been black or white.
Right.
So, well, that was the validation, but also it tells a lot about that manipulation and gaslighting and how harmful narcissist behavior is. So this is what just popped into my mind as well.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, there's no recourse for that type of abuse. Like, the amount of damage that a narcissist causes on your emotions and your spirit, there's sometimes there's not that tangible proof where they can be held accountable for that. And I think that our justice systems need some reworking and reframing around what abuse is, because I also experienced sexual abuse and reproductive abuse, which I learned is a thing as well. And, went to therapy dealing with all the sexual trauma and things like that. And it's like there's no support or anything in terms of, like, our women's safety and women's rights is what was coming up, like, within partnerships. There's this ideology that many males seem to have, that women are objects, that we're something to be had, to be taken, to be used, and, like, we're not treated as human beings with emotions and feelings and ideas. And I think that's a huge disconnect, and why so many men are comfortable with abusing women.
Mm-hmm. This is so, yeah, upsetting. It breaks my heart. And also, yeah, lack of support of the justice system, and actually justice system supporting perpetrators, because as women we cannot show any emotions in the court system, whereas I remember my abuser like crying and then the sheriff being on his side, and those were like fake tears. But I had to learn as well how to prepare myself. Well, he dragged me over 4 years and a half in court, and I had various solicitors coming, checking whether I'm a good mother. So it was very difficult. But also, what you've mentioned. Well, I want to get back to our own truth and owning our own truth. Because I've just told you I was continuously raped towards the end of my relationship. But if I was to now go and repeat the thinking process of external organizations or the society, was I really raped? Because according to the definition, rape normally happens when you're raped by a stranger in a dark alley. I've also heard, can you actually be raped in a marriage? Because what you've mentioned, like I was objectified, so maybe it wasn't a rape. Then I've also heard maybe it wasn't a rape because it was just a coercive sexual abuse because you actually did consent. And I'm like, I did consent, but maybe I had to say yes because I was terrorized, sleep deprived. So there is that confusion and our realities being questioned.
Yes.
So I think it's so important for women, not only women, but for us to be able to, well, find the right support because the Rape Crisis Center, the therapy there, like really, really helped me because they believed my story. But now I've got that own power. I own my story. And despite of my abuser trying to rewrite the story, despite of that ending up as a civil court case, I know the truth. And it's only us that we actually know the truth. And what makes me feel so happy that it is actually me who left him. So he's not going to be
Yes.
able to rewrite that story. And I am in control of my life. He still tries to be in control because we've got children together and they have to go for a contact. He's so desperate, and I'm sure soon he's going to watch that video, which will be very important. So he so much wants to know. He doesn't know I'm a psychic medium, but he uses the children on daily basis. So children question me. So what do you do? So recently I mentioned I'm a creative director. What are you to my children? And my son asked me, creative director of what? I'm a creative director of my life.
Yes, I love that.
So I just come up, or my daughter knows I have a YouTube channel. So what do you do? I have a cooking show. So I come up with all those excuses, and I would be able to tell the truth to my children because there's nothing wrong about the psychic mediumship work I do, but
Yeah,
also I'm not giving control. I don't want to be controlled by my ex, and it's none of his business what I do. So I just play with
exactly.
that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Creative director of my life. That is so beautiful. And yeah, it's unfortunate that these individuals will use children as pawns and not even think about the position that they're putting their children in at times. So it's really unfortunate, but we have to, do the best we can. I'm lucky that I did not have to co-parent with my narcissistic person. That they like once I left, that was it. There's no contact, and I'm really grateful for that. So in some ways like that, that's just a blessing that, it's just me and my youngest and we're okay. We're happier, we're healthier, living abundantly ever after. I reached a lot of goals that I set for myself. Once I walked away, like I was in school studying massage therapy, preparing to get my license, and everything just blew up and I was like, I'm done. I'm done. And I just walked away. I didn't shed a tear. I focused on massage school. I got my license. And I'm just opening my own massage practice this
Yes.
week. So everything's going
Congratulations.
great. Thank you. It's so, honestly, it felt like being in a relationship with a narcissist, it felt like I was under a spell or a curse. And the moment I left, my life just immediately got better.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've come to learn about narcissists, and this is something that I'm writing a book about, is I think that narcissism is on an energetic level, demonic possession. Like it's a demonic entity that is like siphoning energy from light beings. So it's a lot of stuff that I've like researched and been learning and then like seeing that happened in my own journey. And I'm like, wow. So yeah, I think there's definitely a connection there.
I can definitely relate. And I do remember straight away, well, after I left, I came to realization, wow, I have so much mind space. Like he's not taking, and like
Yes,
I'm free. I'm able to think because with narcissists, they want us to think about them. It's all about their needs, and you become so much enmeshed. And I was like, that's so freeing. But people were really sorry for me. They felt sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm like, no, I've never been happier.
no,
Like I've just left. Like
yes.
no.
It's so funny you say that because the first thing I noticed is all the chatter, the anxiety stopped. Like my confidence level soared. I used to have a lot of acne. My skin cleared up magically. Like I didn't really do anything different. I just noticed like my skin, I was glowing, more vibrant. But the number one thing I noticed is that constant thinking and worrying stopped, and it was absolutely peaceful. And it is a peace that is priceless and that I will never ever give up for anyone else.
Uh-huh. Beautiful. As I was getting ready for today's podcast, well, normally they give me messages through various lyrics of songs or books, and then I happened to bump into two books, and they told me like open. So the quotes are in Polish, and I'm
Oh,
going to interpret them into English. But it's so accurate because in this one it says, "I am important. I am as important as other people. I have every right to live according to my desires. It is me who is responsible how my life looks right now, and I have the power to mend in it everything that needs mended. I am the director of my life. I like
wow.
myself, and I am my own best friend. I look myself into my eyes and I tell myself, I love you." So
That
that's
is
been
so perfect.
the quote that I bump into. I'm like, wow, like this is just so accurate because I know you help your clients and you've helped yourself with self-love, this is the exciting journey. So I'd like to move on to that, move on to us speaking about ways that we can practice self-love. Can we talk a little bit about that, how to empower ourselves?
Yes. I think having been in abusive relationships and just tracing my steps backwards to like how was I so susceptible to this? And I think it's in part because we are not necessarily taught how to love ourselves. And I remember I did this talk in my area, and there was this lady who was like in her 70s, and she came up to me and said, "I never loved myself." She was like, "I'm 70 years old, and I don't know how to love myself." And it was the most heartbreaking thing because historically, as women, like we have not been able to really hold space for ourselves. And even still today, we're still fighting against many isms and the ability to be autonomous and sovereign and all of those things. Um, but I feel like self love really begins with accepting who you are, who you've been, what you've done, and what you've experienced. And you don't have to like it, but just being in acceptance of these are the stories, these are the threads that make up who I am. Because when we can love our stories, even the ugliest parts, there's no shame, there's no hiding it. And when you're able to speak and say, I was a victim of domestic violence, I was sexually assaulted, I've experienced these things, to me, it's healing to use your voice to speak on what you've experienced because it helps empower another woman. So some self-loving things. I love what the book said about like looking in your mirror into the eyes and saying, I love you. I do that a lot. I would just stand in the mirror and look at myself and say, Jovhannah, I love you. You're beautiful. You're smart. You are capable. Like you're an overcomer. You are abundant. You are blessed. And just pouring on all of the things. And even, you know, if you have body issues, just holding whatever part of your body, whether it's your tummy, your arms, and just like, I love my body, like my beautiful body. This body allowed me to give birth. This body has carried me through years of life. This body has protected me. And just honoring yourself in that way, because like we truly have to refill our cups. I know as a mom, like we're constantly having to pour into our children. And then if we have work and clients, so it's like, who's going to do that for us? Who is going to pour into our cup when we're on empty? And so finding ways to take care of yourself, I look at self-love in a holistic component. So what things can you do for your mind, for your body, for your soul, and for your money? I incorporate finances into everything that I do because it was one of the reasons I was stuck in an abusive relationship, was because the financial abuse. I didn't have the money, I didn't have the means. And so I'm all about empowering women financially to like whatever it is, so that if you need to get up and go, you can get up and go. If you need something for yourself, you can obtain it. And so what are some ways that you can love yourself mentally? And some of these overlap. So of course, like journaling, meditation, reading a book. I highly recommend turning off social media for a bit, like phone off, just super like disconnecting and just letting your mind rest, because we're constantly bombarded with information all the time. You can like write affirmations, read affirmations, you know, talking to a friend. And a lot of these weave into the emotional as well. Therapy is something that I recommend for everyone to experience because it's so beneficial. Writing out how you feel, writing letters about situations that bother you or to someone. You don't have to give the letter. It's just like allowing yourself to express it. That's so powerful. And yeah, those are just some that came to mind. Of course, like being in nature, moving your body. I try to stay away from the word workout and just like finding a body movement practice that feels good to you, whether it's going for a walk, doing yoga, dancing, or if it is going to the gym or swimming, just finding something to nourish your body, drinking water, eating healthy foods, all the things that make you feel good.
Beautiful. And I loved how you mentioned the importance of reconnecting with our bodies, because I remember after leaving the abusive relationship, I was so disconnected. And it was only this week, well, I'm on a forever healing journey. I feel like I show up for myself. So I work now with a drama therapist. And oh, I cried this week because she made me realize, and she told me, look, Marta, I think you have finally managed to develop a sense of safety within yourself. Because when I first left, I didn't feel safe. I felt threatened and I couldn't even I didn't have like happy childhood memories that I could anchor myself to. And what I told her, well, recently I've taken myself out dancing, because I used to dance a lot before I was in that abusive relationship, and I used to dance a lot salsa, bachata. So not only I've managed to take myself out dancing, but this is a couple dance, and my nervous system was not triggered. I didn't go into fight and flight mode, but I actually had fun. And dancing, like hiking, are the two ways of my active meditation. Those are the two activities where I'm able to have like no thoughts. I'm actually loving it. So I was so proud of myself because as I was driving to the party, I started feeling anxious. And then I asked my spirit guides, because I worked with my spirit guides, and I told them, look, I've been of service. I've done my readings this week. Now it's your turn to help me do something with the anxiety. I've protected my energy. I haven't done it for a long time. Do something. And they've done. The anxiety passed. And I was just able to attend some dance classes. And then I went to like a couple of parties on my own, meeting other people. And I would have not imagined that just after I left that relationship. So I just wanted to share that beautiful story of how I've managed to like reconnect with my body, reconnect with or find my own sense of safety, which is so, I think, important
Yes.
for the self-love practice as well.
Absolutely. And that's part of it, like feeling safe. And congratulations to you because I know like how hard and challenging that is. I like isolated myself for such a long time because I never felt safe. So working to get back into that safety, to get grounded back in your body and feel safe is huge. So that is amazing. And I
Thank
love
you.
dancing too. So that's
Yes.
awesome. But yeah, finding ways to feel safe. And I even think too, like self-defense classes is another way to really do that. So you feel like, okay, I know how to protect myself. And I think that's really important for women. And, I advocate for women taking, self-defense classes and knowing ways to protect ourselves because it's important and it matters. And we deserve to feel safe no matter where we are. So yeah, that's really important, feeling safe in your body. And I think too, like dance and just movement, because everything is energy. So we store that trauma in our bodies, which is why I love being a massage therapist. And movement can help us release that stored energy so that we can like move that stuff out of our bodies, out of our system.
Beautiful. Well, I want to come back and talk a little bit about love. And I know you have a program and you're going to mention more about the energy of love, but essentially we are all love everything. Like the most important thing in the world is love. So could you tell me a little bit more about love?
Yeah, so love, like everything is energy, everything is a frequency. And one of the ways that I have like broken down love to understand relationships is viewing it as these different energetic frequencies. So there's like low vibrational relationships and then higher vibrational relationships. And so oftentimes we can get caught up in karmic relationships, which I like to call love lessons. And those are usually, well, they can be short term or longer term, but they're just highly chaotic relationships. And those are the ones where often we see abuse and narcissistic connections and things like that. And then there are the situationships, which are another form of low vibration relationship where you don't really know what's happening. You're just kind of in and out with someone. There's no true grounding. And those are the ones that become complicated because there's, again, nothing solid has formed. And then we move into what I call the good relationship. And that's where everyone is tired of the games and the ambiguity. Both parties are open, ready, and willing to be in a good partnership. And then there's the spiritual love connection, which is like the highest level. And that is kind of where both parties unite and you have a shared mission within your relationship. And sometimes that shared mission is just raising amazing children. Sometimes that shared mission is maybe a business or some sort of organization to give back to the world. And so we can see like just different levels of relationships. And in the course that I have, the Energy of Love course, it kind of breaks down more so in detail these types of relationships and how you can gauge where you are. And it gives you some love work to kind of help you process like especially if you've dealt with the lower vibrational relationships, to help you process and identify the patterns that have kind of kept you stuck at that frequency. And oftentimes those patterns are not our own. They're like karmic or ancestral energy patterns that we're continuing to play out because maybe we didn't see it modeled, or just, it's encoded in us. So we have to, our work here is to clear it, not to continue to relive it and to, pass it down, but to clear the obstacles and roadblocks so that we can pave the way for the next generation. So that, and that's part of like the work that I wanted to do. I was like, I have daughters, like I don't want them to be abused. I don't want them to go through the things that I went through. So let me use what I learned to help other people. And so that's kind of what inspired my work. But yeah, so that course really just teaches people to understand love as a frequency, and what love is not what we have seen or experienced at the hands of abuse and manipulation and being used and lied to. Like, that's not love. And so many people use the word love to cover up these insecurities and just maliciousness. And so that's what that course is, kind of help. But then what happens is people think, well, I don't want to be in a relationship because love hurts, and all the people who said they love me hurt me. So people stop believing in love, or their heart turns cold, and then they go out and decide, well, since I got hurt, I'm just going to hurt everybody else that I run into. So it just keeps feeding into this cycle of trauma. And it is my hope that we can stop that by recognizing and honoring love as it truly is supposed to be.
Beautiful. And I loved how you also mentioned in one of your episodes of the podcast about healing, self-healing. And it was so important to mention that we can heal various parts of ourselves alone, but then certain things have to be healed in a relationship. We are not able to heal everything on our own. And I bumped into another book. I'm not sure whether you know it, by Paulo Coelho, 11 Minutes. There are lots of quotes about love, sex, about relationships there. But one of the quotes I've got two quotes that I'm going to read here. One talks about passion. Passion makes a person stop eating, sleeping, working, feeling at peace. A lot of people are frightened because when it appears, it demolishes all the old things it finds in its path. It shatters the old, familiar aspects of life, leaving individuals unsettled and catapulting them into uncharted territories. Despite its unsettling nature, passion is a force that propels people to reach greater heights and discover the immense depths of their capabilities. So, yeah, I just wanted first to read that because it talks a lot about the healing journey that can happen as we are entering a relationship, or when we think about love. And the other quote that I've got here, I just opened the book at random, which is not random, is that love is not to be found in someone else, but in ourselves. We simply awaken it. But in order to do that, we need the other person. The universe only makes sense when we have someone to share our feelings with. You cannot lose anyone in real love, because being in love is having what is the most important in life without owning anyone.
Yes, that is so beautiful. One of the loves of my life, like we've never been in a relationship. I love that person unconditionally, but there's like, I genuinely want for them to be happy. And if that's not with me, that's fine. But as long as you're happy and you're safe, like that makes me happy and feel good. And I love what they said about like ownership. Love and being in a relationship is supposed to be a reflection. And oftentimes it's not, because like we've both experienced, we were in a relationship with someone who, for whatever reason, our love or our light triggered them. it caused the worst to come out of them. And I think sometimes when that happens, it's because, again, that person does not love themselves. They don't have whatever it is they need to be loving. And I think it's really important that we recognize it wasn't our fault. It wasn't anything that we did. It's that person was not able to reflect back what what we were giving, what we were putting out. All healthy relationships start with love for ourselves. And now that I have been through so many unhealthy relationships, I'm able to recognize when someone's not able to be the reflection of love that I need. And sometimes that doesn't mean that they're a bad person, that they're abusive. It just means we're not in alignment. We don't speak the same language when it comes to relationships. And that's okay. Like, we can still be friends, but we don't have to interact beyond that. And I think once we get to a place where we can recognize that love is not owning a person, it's sharing life with them in a sense, I think that is a better way of looking at it sometimes.
Yes, it is beautiful. And I think in the same book, Paulo Coelho, he talks about, love or being in a relationship is not enslavement. It actually gives you freedom.
Freedom. Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
So, okay, so what are other offerings? What other things do you help women with? Well, maybe not only women, but yes, what else do you do?
I have gotten more so into still like within the love realm, but also going beyond like the healthy relationship, and really helping women manifest the life that they want.
Okay.
Because when you are in an abusive or unhealthy relationship, your whole world is shattered. So it's kind of like rebuilding and rebirthing yourself. So getting clear again on like who you are, what it is that and who it is that you desire to be after this experience. And it's really helping them recreate themselves so that they can manifest whatever it is, whether it's a new partner, a business, just getting them to a place where they are living abundantly ever after and able to do the things that they desire for themselves and for their children. So right now I've been focusing more so on getting my spa open, but I still have like my courses available, the Energy of Love course, and doing tarot readings for love, of course.
Beautiful.
I've got some readings that are kind of focused on picking up the pieces, like after a relationship, self-love reading, manifesting money, just whatever people need, just to kind of help them live the life that they want. It's kind of where I'm at right now.
Beautiful. And I love what you've mentioned about manifestation, like the way you help women with that, you help them almost, I feel like, come up with an action plan. So it's not only about visualization and then surrendering and trusting it's an integral part, but you actually have to take action and you have to do something. So I feel like you help women to get clarity, or you ask them, I know I've heard that in one of the podcasts, that you want them to really know what it is that they want. So be honest with themselves, because that's a starting point. Without knowing where you want to head, without knowing what's your goal, your manifestation is going to be scattered and contradicting.
Yeah, that's so true. And Spirit keeps calling me to work with men as well in this realm. And that's something I'm still sitting with and figuring out. But I have had male clients as well. And I do desire to support them in some way, because I see so many men are like hurting and needing support and guidance, but it just hasn't fully settled in what way I'm going to do that, or if I'm going to partner with someone else to do it. Because I feel like sometimes men need that guidance and support from other men. And I'm seeing more and more that there are these spaces of healing for men, which I think is beautiful, because it's absolutely needed.
So there are those circles of men gathering right now. I follow someone on Instagram as well. I know he's very proactive as well. And it's so beautiful to see men learning, or maybe not learning, but really when they talk about their emotions, when they hold space for one another. So I think it's beautiful that they can also experience what we women have been experiencing while gathering with other sisters, other women.
Yeah, I think so too. It's definitely time. I feel that on a grand scale, having men dealing more around mental health and self-love and their own like healing circles and journeys, it can only serve humanity in a greater way for men to do healing work.
Thank you. Well, could you share, do you have any final messages, anything that you would like to leave the viewers and the listeners with?
I would say that no matter where you are or what you have experienced, you have the ability to live abundantly ever after. I have gone through domestic violence, sexual assault, homelessness. Like, I have been through a lot of challenging experiences, and you can get through them. So, my advice is don't give up, keep pushing, um, keep thriving, keep growing, keep healing. And and the other thing I'd say too is not necessarily a destination of healing. And I think might have talked about this on my podcast. The healing happens in the way that you live. So don't wait until you feel like you're healed to open your heart or to start that passion project. Live now, because now is all that we have.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you so much. And finally, where can people find you? How can people work with you? Share it, please.
So you can head to my website. It's jovhannahtisdale.com, and all of my information is there. I've got some blog articles. I have courses, a journaling workshop. You can also book me for a reading. But yeah, everything is there on my website. I would love to support you in whatever way that I can.
Thank you. And I'm going to add all of your details in the description of the podcast. Well, again, I just want to say thank you for you. For you being here, for you agreeing to have that conversation, a very important conversation with me. And I know it's going to help so many women, not only women, because we've covered very
Yeah,
important subjects. So it's been an honor speaking with you. And I want to say goodbye
thank
to all of the
you.
viewers and listeners. Okay, thank
Beautiful.
you.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great
It's been a
day.
pleasure. You too. Bye.